trespass even once, then it all just disappears. Clock starts over. As long as I am loving you, you'll never be alone. As long as you keep wanting me around. This is one trip you're gonna have to take alone. When you come back, you'll find me here where I belong. As long as I am loving you, you'll never be alone. As long as you keep wanting me around. But this is one trip you're gonna have to take alone. When you come back, you'll find me here where I belong.
Hello, Vallo.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you for joining me here on my podcast today.
Of course.
We just watched your animatic that you released recently. Find Me Here, right? That's what it's called?
What was it? Sorry?
You'll Find Me Here? Or is that what it's called? The cover
Yeah,
that you
that's
did?
the song. Yeah, Find Me Here.
You put a lot of work into that story, though. You were telling me last night just about how much of that stuff you were doing.
It's called...
That character development is pretty insane. How much
Thank
work
you.
did you put into, like you said, the idea for this story came into your head like 2 months ago?
Like around 2 months ago, it actually started as like a trauma remedy in a way. So something to relate to like comfort me. Then I was like, I should add more depth to this. Like this has potential to become a story and have other people relate to what it means. So it started off with Lavender in the video as the rabbit. It's like a trauma remedy almost, like a comfort item. But eventually transformed into a character himself. And the series is called Prisma Visions. And a fun fact about that is my tarot deck is actually called Prisma Visions, which is why I named it Prisma Visions, because it's my spiritual journey.
Correlation there works. I love when somebody incorporates something that they have created, like, or that they have like a deep meaning for, like, and then they sort of incorporate it into their own lives. Like I take a lot of the spiritual stuff that I've been learning, and I have incorporated it into mostly what I've learned growing up is that the world is comprised of atomic structure, and everything's made of matter, and we're all different particles, basically. The way that my spiritual journey is panning out is just telling me that these molecules and all this matter is just mingling with all of this stuff to constantly create. And
Right.
that's what I think every person is here to do on this planet. And what you've been doing recently has been very magnificent. It's just colorful. It's overall over the top, like just, it's a spectacle.
Yeah.
It's definitely reminiscent of like children's shows and stuff like that that I used to really enjoy growing up and stuff like that. It reminds me of some of the Dr. Seuss work that I've seen. And I mean, we'll get more into that a little later. Actually, I'll deal with that later. But tell me a bit about some of the characters that you want to talk about.
So the main protagonists are Fawn and Lavender. So those two are pretty much shown in the video itself, the animatic. And Prisma Visions itself is about how the universe sends out these cosmic rabbits out to certain humans. Some of them actually don't have humans. They just kind of show up randomly. Whenever you need to learn something, whenever you need to hear something, it's kind of like when the universe sends you a message whenever you need to hear it. Like, I am searching for a definition for how I'm going to solve this certain problem. And then the universe is like, okay, I'm not going to give it to you right in your lap because nothing comes easy in life, but I'm going to send it to you in something like a synchronicity or something like that. So that's how some of the rabbits show up. Or it's honestly a big work in progress. I haven't created all the humans yet, but all the rabbits, there's 8 in total, have been created. And they're all named after the colors of their mane. So lavender, then there's noir, for example, and gold and cerulean. So, hit my glass. So basically, they're sent out to help these humans travel through their last reincarnation. So I usually implement what I've learned so far from people that I look up to, and use those as quotes and then just kind of bounce off of it. Since I don't have like a professional Procreate on an iPad yet, I use an art studio app for $5 on my iPhone, and I use my finger to draw everything, which is why it takes me so long to do so many things, because that's kind of how I grew up with. I never had an iPad or anything professional to use, so I just kind of tended to the garden that I could touch at this point, and sometimes do traditional and just kind of upload it onto my phone. And I like to write a lot, so that was kind of seen in your cover photo that I have a lot of poetry. And there's also an excerpt of like a teaser of what Prisma Vision is going to be about, one of the heaviest subjects to kind of draw people in. So it's probably going to start out most likely literature first to kind of appeal to the senses of imagery, and then slowly add into the animatics and such like that. But the character development sheets will be created, so it gives more imagery to what's going on in the piece.
A lot of your work is like digital art. It's very smooth looking. Like there's not a lot of hesitation. It doesn't look like there's a lot of hesitation in your work. Speaking of hesitation, I just want to pause for a second and say thank you very much, Aaron Goldberg, for the rate of 52 people. Very much. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of questions from the chat. I want to get back to exactly what we were talking about in a moment, but there's people here asking questions now. So we got one from the DTFH coming in asking if you've got the tablet that you were working on.
So I did get the tablet for Christmas. It did not work on my Mac. So we're taking it back, and I'm actually getting an iPad, which has Procreate on it, and that's going to have the illustration app on it, which is what I use. I'm an illustrator. That's why he mentions like Dr. Seuss and such like that. So that is going to be 10 times better for this, and I'm planning to do that this week, actually.
But getting back to that, like, I mean, I use my phone and this stylus most of the time. I have a tablet as well that I use, but when I do digital stuff, sometimes I use my finger, but most of the time I just use that little stylus. It seems like I tried to sit down and do a detailed piece like something like you do the other day, and I could barely get like sort of the basic shapes out. How long does one of these like digital pieces, like if you're working on some of this stuff, how long does it take you?
So it really depends on the time of day, surprisingly. Like for some reason, if I'm trying to draw in the morning or the afternoon and my brain just doesn't want to cooperate, it looks like a preschooler fucking draw it. So I try not to do that. But around midnight or 1 a.m, that's when my creativity really sparks and come to life. So I do a lot of things during the nighttime. Like I'll first draw it traditionally and have a really rough sketch of it, but then I'll upload it on my phone and then use 2 layers to trace over the line art and then color it in and just kind of go from there.
So you use multiple layers? You shrink them down like to
I use 2, just 2 layers.
Just 2 layers?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive. Some of your work is over the top. Like, for 2 layers. I mean, I usually, for my adverts for my podcast, I use like 6 or 8 layers just to get a couple
I've seen
things
people do that. I don't know how to do that, actually. Because I know some people use those layers where they can block out certain lines that they can't color over. I don't do that. So guess what I do? I color over the lines, and then I retrace over the lines, and then I shade them, and then I color over the lines again, and then I redraw the lines. It's what do you do with a $5 app?
Well, what can you do with a $5 app? I mean,
Exactly, do what you can.
It looks like what you can do with a $5 app is pretty incredible.
Thank you.
To be honest, I'm just flipping through some of it here on some people are taking a look at it. I mean, your Midnight Gospel stuff is just incredible. I'm personally more of a fan of some of your sketch work.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's very fine and detailed. It's up on the screen right now. Sorry, we're just flipping through some of the bigger ones.
No, that's fine.
Now I went through your YouTube last night, and a few months ago you posted a video, another cover song, I believe it was, and it seemed to incorporate all of the different colored rabbits from Prisma Visions.
I'm trying to remember which one
I
it is.
don't remember what it was called, to be honest. Actually, I'm gonna actually.
If it's the one with the illustrations that are just kind of colored in with only the lines, that's actually not Prisma Visions. I think it's. Is it the Moon song?
You know what? I'm not sure.
Because that actually wasn't Prisma Visions. Most of the things that I create have symbolism in them. So it's always, and that's the main thing with Prisma Visions as well. Everything's up for interpretation, which I took influence from the Midnight Gospel from as well. Like, Duncan will always have his definition for what it means, but in Prisma Visions, I'll always have my definition for what the rabbits and the humans mean and what they're going through. But it's really up for interpretation. There's really no right or wrong answer. And that's kind of the motto I live by as well for like my spirituality and magic. There's really no right or wrong answer. Your belief is what gives power to how you live, really, your passions. As long as you believe in it, as long as you think it's right, as long as it's not harming anyone, then fuck, do it. Like, live your life, be happy. Who cares? So,
speaking of the DTFH, though, Duncan is a major inspiration, and I guess this illustration came out of that too.
Right? Hey, yeah.
That link is somewhere. Yeah, there it is. You can get one of Dub's shirts from any of those links that I just put in the chat. But when you're working on something, have you already interpreted what it means to you before you're finished?
Yeah, I'm a daydreamer, so everything that I daydream in my head, I try to implement as much as I can into artwork. But it's kind of challenging because what a lot of artists struggle with this too. They like see a perfect image in their head. I want to do this, and then they struggle to make it perfectly the same. And it's usually never the same. You think of like this entire Mona Lisa masterpiece in your mind, and then you actually have to sit down and do it. And it's the same thing with writing too, especially with writer's block. It's like I have this entire idea that I want to put onto a paper, and you sit down and you type a few words, and it just doesn't work. You're just like drawing a blank, like shit.
It does not always come out the way that you expect it to, for sure. But one of the things that I notice when I'm doing art is that there's always a fluent, like there's a flow, and it doesn't always come. It doesn't, like, sometimes that flow is interrupted or blocked or whatever, but it's always something that like is there when you're taking something that you've had your daydreams about and you're trying to put it on paper or a tablet or whatever. Does it ever get misinterpreted, or do you always sort of like, do you let it block if it sort of comes to something that you're not sure that it actually means?
Like in my own interpretation or other people's interpretations when it's done?
When you're creating something, I don't think that other people's interpretations, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, other people's interpretations of it aren't really...
Oh yeah, they're different.
Yeah. They don't really matter, and you don't really... I mean, you can take a couple, what are people going to think about this? And you might think, oh, they might think it's stupid. They might think it's...
Yes.
It's like somebody younger drew it or something like that. But it really, as long as... I think that the purpose of... If you're going to make art, you're going to make art because you want to make art. So the true purpose of anybody making art is really for themselves. So it's really about your interpretation. But
right.
If you're taking one of your ideas that you've sort of daydreamed about and you want to put it on a physical, like into imagery, when you're looking at that as a whole, and you're like, okay, so what does this mean to me? Like, as for rabbits, like Lavender, and they came out as rabbits.
Right.
Why did they come out as rabbits?
So for rabbits, I always thought would be one of my spiritual animals, as well as like a deer and obviously a dove. But rabbits they're swift, they're intelligent. I take inspiration from Watership Down. It's a very good book, and it's a very good movie. It's my favorite childhood movie, and it's Prince with 1,000 Enemies. So in this story, the rabbits, are literally the prince with 1,000 enemies. They have everyone against them. There's the world's against them. Their prey, the predators are against them. But they were given the gift of speed, so they have these long legs to run away. And I like the speed. It's not completely worked out yet. I just like rabbits. I have my own rabbit. I like the meaning of rabbits. I just like when they come up. Watership Down was always a childhood movie. I like the art of those. That's most likely why. Like I said, this is a huge work in progress, so half the time I just pull ideas out of my ass and implement them. But I like the art style of Watership Down. I like the spiritual meaning behind it. So it's like I kind of want to take inspiration from that. I want to make them rabbits too. It was always a thing. It's weird because I had that in my past artworks as well before I even thought of Prisma Visions. And I always asked myself that same question, why rabbits? And I never had an answer for it. It just came to me. It's always a rabbit.
Well, see, that's what I mean then, is because like I was asking more about like, if something being interpreted to you ever feels the wrong thing being interpreted, but you definitely felt like for rabbits that this was the right thing being interpreted here. So I feel like we definitely got to the root of that.
Yeah.
Why is it that you decided now to tell your story? I mean, like you said,
I never had any ideas.
That's another good reason, actually. Couldn't think of it before. I didn't think of it before.
No, that's fine.
About as plain and simple as you can get, really. So, why do you make art? Let me put it that way.
Art makes me happy. That's kind of what I grew up with, and art makes the world go around. You find art in really everything. Anything you look at, you'll find art in. Without color in the world, then really, why is the world spinning? There has to be color in the world. I like black and everything. I mean, that's obvious. But black is still a beautiful color to me. Dark colors can still be beautiful. Even faded colors can still be beautiful. There's art in literally everything. There's art in like talking, the tone of voice is art. There's art in how people portray themselves. There's art in emotions. So I run off of art. As a child, I was bullied a lot, so I didn't really have many friends. So my only friend was art, was creativity, was imagination, and I would create all these characters. Like, why do you have imaginary friends? That's creative outlet too. So I make art for creative outlets. I make art for my own anxiety, and Prisma Visions is going to be something that hopefully helps other people relate as well, because it's going to have dark topics such as like depression, anxiety that are personified and turned into these like grotesque monsters and such. So I kind of want it to be like a series that people can relate to, that people can go back on and take quotes from, that people can find these characters as comfort characters, that they can just kind of kinship as just something they relate to. I want it to make them feel something. I like to make people feel something when I draw or when I create art or when I sing. I like when people show me that they have emotion. I like vulnerability. It's probably the most beautiful thing to me, to be vulnerable and human.
Yeah, like I was saying to you last night, and I think this morning too, your character development is just amazing. So I think you've been solid there. You cited Tim Burton and Trevor Henderson before as some of your influences for your artwork. That's obviously more some of the darker side. That's going to
be like the monsters and such.
Charcoal drawings and stuff like that you do. But what are some of your other inspirations?
So the inspirations for the kind of cartoonish illustration style that I draw right now would be Bee and Puppy Cat. Major inspiration, because I love it's. I'm trying to remember Pendleton Ward. Correct, right? Okay, so it seems to be that every show he's created, I ended up taking inspiration from. Adventure Time, The Midnight Gospel, and Bee and Puppy Cat were all created by this same glorious man. And oh my god, I love it. I just love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, Adventure Time I've been getting into more recently than I was before. I have to cite my own opinion here. The character development that Pendleton goes for is very different from what I'm used to, the styles that I'm used to. So Adventure Time was a little bit difficult for me to take to, but my kids have been watching it, so I've kind of fallen in love with a couple of the characters. So we're getting more into that over on this end too. But we're gonna talk about. I mentioned Dr. Seuss earlier, but we're gonna talk about your characters that you recently put out there, Rat and Tat. I watched this short a little while ago, Mr. Green Cheese. I'm looking at you, but It was quite interesting. I was more of a fan of the first half than the second half. But these,
Yeah, understandable.
there's a specific image that a painting that Dr. Seuss put out there that I was particularly reminded of. I think it's called "Image of 1,000 Cats" or something like that. It's a bunch. He said there's something like 300 and something cats on the painting, and I was immediately reminded of that when I saw Rat and Tat. And at first I didn't remember who the illustrator of the painting was or who the artist was. Yeah, I found out it was Dr. Seuss, and then I looked at some of your work, and I looked at some of Dr. Seuss's work, and some, not necessarily Lavender and the characters from Prisma Visions, but some of your other work, some of the way that you interpret some things is very Seussian. And I don't know if you've ever considered that about yourself. I don't know if you grew up with Dr. Seuss as a young girl.
Maybe Fox and Socks rings a bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, everybody has. I mean, I think in school gone through like some of the Dr. Seuss stuff. I mean, I can't say everybody because he's not that old, but it was interesting to me that just that correlation of some of your work seemed to be. You never cited him as an inspiration or anything, as far as I could tell. But it was just interesting how we sort of wound up talking. Rat and Tat here. We two very peculiar cats that run a coffee shop.
Right.
My son particularly has this little place that he runs. It's a little kitchen from the corner of his bedroom that he calls Kitty Cafe. So you.
That's adorable.
Interestingly enough, when I first listened to or watched this, I mean, I guess it was a voice reel. It was more just of an image.
Yeah.
But are you gonna work on that for like an animatic as well?
For Rat and Tat in general, or
Yeah.
they're background characters. Okay, so here's the background behind them is the fact that so Mr. Green Cheese, my best friend Chris and I, we're kind of like voice actors in a way. He has all the professional setup equipment. So the covers that you see me doing, he did the ukulele for Out of Tune. He did like the music, the background music for I Am Not Alive. Most of the songs that I do that I haven't ripped off of YouTube for the instrumental, because I don't play instruments, came from him because he has Logic. I have GarageBand. There's very limited things you can do between those two softwares. But so he does most of those stuff. And we just like to sit in his room and say random shit. And then somehow we incorporate these things. Like we were just sitting here making stupid fart noises into a microphone for 10 minutes straight, and then went, what if we turn this into a character? What if we like put these stupid voices that we're doing into the microphone for absolute no reason, just to pass time, and turn it into a character? And everything that was in that one script was improvised. That was an entire take, just us bullshitting around. So we created a story off the bat, pretty much.
Well,
so they're technically.
Where else does it come from? Imagination, right? It comes from your imagination.
Absolutely. It's just boredom and then having fun and getting used to your inner child, just letting that run loose. Because who doesn't like fart jokes? Come on.
Who doesn't? A couple of them every now and then. Can't hurt nobody.
Exactly.
You recently auditioned for the part of Ellie on Robo Zeta?
That's on TikTok, yeah.
Is that even
It's something I found on TikTok, and I like to scroll through the hashtags for voice acting because I'm an aspiring voice actress. So I saw this come up, and I was like, oh shit, because I like to do protagonist voices, like children's voices and such like that. And I just decided to audition for it. That going from there, the auditions are not even closed yet.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't watched much of it. I saw your audition, and I saw a clip on YouTube that was not in English. Obviously, they're looking for English voice actors.
Yeah, English dub.
So, I mean, but my kids are watching like cartoons nowadays, and I'm sitting on the couch flipping, doom scrolling, as you would put it. But every once in a while, I put my phone down and I just try to live, and I watch what the kids are watching on TV, and I just sit there with them. But there's a couple cartoons that specifically reminded me of that one, and they're pretty popular. So I mean, if you get on that show, You better look out. You're going to have a lot of people looking into your work. A little chuffed about that, are you? But I mean, it's definitely like something that's going to develop into something like. I'm excited to see what else you put out there as far as voice acting goes. Have you ever, other than the stuff that you've done for yourself, have you ever done any other voice acting?
I've not done it for like other people, but I took professional voice acting lessons like 2 or 3 years ago, where that's the first time I ever actually stepped foot into a studio and learned how to use a microphone, and we call this the cans. So we would just be given podcast lines or commercial lines, advertisement lines, and we just have to like keep reciting them back and forward to each other until we got it right. And people like critiquing everything. It's a friendly kind of thing, just to see if it's your cup of coffee. And eventually I liked the cartoons, and then I took a class for cartooning, and then I was named Twilight Sparkle.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you told me about that before. I used to do voices and stuff.
Oh, I've heard. I've heard.
Yeah. I was thinking about whether I should or not, but I'm probably
Oh,
not
no,
gonna.
please, go ahead.
No. Yeah. No, but I used to do a little bit of just like messing around, and we didn't really ever record anything. But what about voice acting makes you want to pursue it?
I like to give life to characters. It's one of my biggest passions, to give life to a character, especially the ones that do not have a voice. So like characters from a book, or I'm trying to remember what kind of things. Like, okay, back when I first started voice acting, Homestuck. So it's like this RPG kind of game, and they don't have voices. And that gives you free reign to give them whatever fucking voice you want. And I love that. I love that when you can just go free reign, when you don't really need a description of the character. You can just go absolute batshit with it. And then if people like it, people like it. One of the most recent ones I did, the Arcana, it's like this visual novel kind of thing. It's an app. And I used to do these like really grouchy voices for a character named Volgora. And that's one of my favorite voices to do, actually, is to go stepping out of my boundaries. And that's another reason why I like voice acting, actually, because it takes me out of my comfort zone, but in the most comfortable way possible, if that makes sense. Oh, yeah. Like, I don't need to publicly do it. I don't need to really show anyone, but I can have fun with it at the same time. Like, can I make my voice deeper? Can I scream at the top of my lungs and still make sense? Can I give emotion to this character? So Volgora is a character that's all about bloodbaths and everything. He's like a warrior. So I would do this really warrior-based voice and like war cries and everything, and just be completely vulgar. And I love that because you can just go off the walls with it. Yeah, so the more emotion you put in a character, the better they become.
Yeah, you definitely have to use the imagination for that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of like that with music too. I do a lot of music, and you know, art even too, like my paintings and stuff like that. You just do what you do. You don't have to show anybody, so you can't really be judged for it unless you decide to show somebody, hey, I've done this or whatever. But I definitely feel like giving life to characters or giving life to something that doesn't already have a voice or whatever is definitely something that art is about.
The biggest tip I can give to people if they're going to get into voice acting, or even just art in general, is you need to immerse yourself in that. So, for example, Alex Gray, right? That's the artist of the thing. Yeah. So he immerses himself completely in his work. It's usually through visions or something like that. But immerse yourself in it. Like, literally become that. Pretend you're in the world itself. As for characters, completely forget your identity. This is not me. So if I'm doing, for example, Fawn's voice, this is not me. I'm now Fawn. I'm now stepping in her shoes. I'm feeling the turmoil she's feeling. I am feeling the emotion she's feeling. If I'm sad, then she's sad. And that's like one of the hardest difficulties as a voice actor, is when there's like a crying scene. You gotta make yourself cry. Like, you gotta think of something that makes you cry. You gotta become so like immersed and engrossed in this character that you need to cry. You need to feel exactly what they're feeling. If somebody just died and it's a character, it doesn't matter if it's a character. You're going to feel like that character's real. So for example, and this is hypothetical, of course, if Lavender were to die, then I have to pretend I'm crying over the death of like my friend. So, and then for art as well, you need to immerse yourself in your art. If you're doing a certain palette, you need to feel that palette's color. If it's yellow, if it's pink, or if it's red, you need to feel that. You can associate it with the season. You can associate it with the feeling. If it's like a dark kind of grim painting, like how I do with the Tim Burton influenced ones, then you need to feel that anxiety. And it's good to cope with anxiety and depression that way, which is why a lot of people use art as an outlet, because you're still talking to it. You're turning it into a character. That was actually mentioned in one of the family gatherings, is that you can turn into a character, you can personify it, and then you can talk to it, and then you create art out of it. And a lot of people think it's beautiful, but it's also helping you as well, and it's helping you cope with these things that you normally can't cope with sometimes when it becomes too out of control. So people take a sketchbook and just scribble and just like write around so they don't harm themselves. But that's still art. That's still communicating. That's still coping. That's still an outlet. And that's great because you're not harming yourself. You're not harming others.
Yeah, I think it's definitely has to be an outlet. Like, and it has to be done. Like, I don't think anybody can say that, oh, I just do art because I do art. Yeah, it's just art. It's just art. No, you do it because there's something you need to get out of you that's inside of you, regardless if it's a thought or a feeling or emotion or, you just want to punch somebody in the face, so you got to scribble on a piece of paper instead. Regardless, it's always that you've got something in you that you need to get out. And I think that's something that, like, I mean, Duncan has helped me bring to my surface recently, is that there's a lot that we don't address, like people, just as humans. Just like having these feelings, we take for granted a lot of these feelings that we have. We're just like, oh, yeah, I'll see you later. And then you walk out the door and get hit by a bus, and you forget that, you wanted to say I love you to your brother before you died, but now you're dead. So what can you do, right? It's an expression that needs to be had, art, for certain. But yeah, Duncan brought that to light for me. Speaking of the DTFH, what about the DTFH is special to you? I want to hear from you.
What is not special about the DTFH if it wasn't for my wonderful little family? And my father figure himself dead. But God, I don't even know where to start with this. It's such a big topic to me. Like, I don't even remember the person I was before I even came to the DTFH. That's how much it influenced me. But this was 6 months ago. Actually, I think it might have been 7. I joined the Discord 6 months ago. And I first watched the Midnight Gospel. I know some people think it's bad to watch the Midnight Gospel first and not know the podcast, but and that really spoke to me. I was in a really dark place. I was still kind of being abused by a lot of people in my life. I didn't have healthy people at all. So I would watch the Midnight Gospel and kind of feel a sense of comfort, like a drawing towards something. And usually when people inspire me and influence me, I kind of want to give thanks to them. So I started drawing a lot on Twitter, and it was kind of embarrassing to admit that I would do these like daily things every single day and tag him for like attention. But honestly, we're all attention whores. Let's put it that way. Everybody likes attention, and I kind of realized that after months that, it's okay to want attention because we want attention. We kind of need love to survive. So that's one big thing that I actually learned from this family is, it's okay to ask for attention. It's okay to like be selfish sometimes. I'm like, really? That was like an eye-opener for me. So I watched the Midnight Gospel, did all that stuff. And this is what led me to finding my 2 best friends, Nick and Chris. I was on Bumble, a dating app, and I went on a date with Nick. But then I also met Chris because they live together and they're in a band. And this is the first day I ever took a psychedelic. And it's a big leap of faith because, again, I was in a dark place. If strangers kill me, then strangers kill me. I don't care at this point. So I took acid for the first time. It was my first drug. And it was the best decision I've ever made in my life because not only did I meet my unconscious self and my divine, but there was so much baggage that bubbled up to the surface that I could think about, I could talk about freely. And it's like one of those moments where like you get a spark with someone and you can't really explain why. You just met them, but it feels like you've known them forever. And that's kind of how I felt with Nick and Chris. It's like I can open up to these people. They just don't feel like the type of person to ruin me again. So I did that, and we've been best friends for months now. And then they so happen to know the DTFH as well. And then after a while, when I got sick of tagging him and things, I ended up joining the Patreon. And that's how I gave thanks. Like the next family gathering was doing that out of tune song. And then from then on, it's just gathering after gathering of quotes that inspired me and him just cheering me on and being the father figure and just the family cheering me on. It's just a lot of support.
I really have to put it out there for Duncan. If it wasn't for him, I don't know where some of us would be, really. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, the Midnight Gospel was definitely a turning point for me, and I understand why it was such a push for you. And I'm so grateful for it, really, because, like I said, I don't know where half of us would be without it.
Oh yeah.
So, just this family maybe needs to get a little bit of stuff out of the way, but I think once we're all settled again, we'll be fine. Um, where was I gonna go next? I don't have my phone up. Yeah, I look like a. Okay, so we were gonna talk about your practice. Do you only meditate once a week with Duncan, or do you even meditate then
Yeah,
sometimes?
I actually do.
Yeah,
I'm not big on meditation, surprisingly. I can't sit still or shit, but I do
surprised.
practice. Hmm.
I mean, I can't sit still either. I try, like, when
I
I want
try.
to. When I want to, I can't sit still. But some evenings, I just come up here and I just sit at my computer. I'm like, what do I do? I'm not in the mood to play anything. I just sit here
Hmm.
for a couple hours and I don't watch anything and I don't do anything. I'm not listening to anything. I'm just like, am I meditating? So
There's different parts of meditation, so you could be, yes.
I wonder if I'm practicing then and not just than just avoiding the meditation for that reason. But in the summertime I used to go outside and I used to just sit there quietly for a couple hours and that used to feel good. But in the freezing winter of Canada, we don't have that luxury.
Oh my god.
Um, but well, as far as you've got other things that you do as far as your practice goes, don't you?
Right, yeah. So that's gonna be high magic and low magic. So like low magic, or it could technically be high magic, is the tarot cards. So I would use that for guidance. I would consult the cards when I'm like completely out of answers, completely out of like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I usually just consult the cards and they'll give you a little push. But the good thing about the cards is they're very honest. And I wouldn't say this is a bad thing, but some people don't like reading the reverse cards. They think they get more out of it with the upright version. That's completely fine. Again, whatever suits you best. But I like to read the reversed ones because it is very harsh and I like harsh truths. I do not like sugarcoating anything. So it'll tell me if I need to get my shit together and to stop doing something, it will tell me, get your shit together and put your head in gear before you end up going off a cliff. That's one of my practices. It
Right.
puts me in line.
What else? What else puts you in line? Because I know I've been having a lot of issues with my temper recently. So putting people in line and grounding them is something that I've been sort of experimenting with, finding things that I can do.
I wish I had answered as a temper one because I too have a temper, and whenever it's a big emotion, so it tends to overcome you. So when you're having a temper, you want to throw things, you want to punch things, and sometimes it happens. And it's not like you can just go, all right, I'm gonna meditate right now and get away these motions. Doesn't work like that because then you're sitting there and your body is like, throw something, damn it! And it's like, no.
Yeah.
But
Can't always just sit still for a minute.
I wish it was that easy. I
Yeah.
really do. But the fourfold breathing technique, that is what helped me a lot, and I feel like it will help in meditation, and it will help in really anything, which is, as Damien Eccles puts it, because he's my like high magic teacher, you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, then you exhale for 4 seconds, and you hold it again, and you repeat. So it's 4 by 4 by 4 by 4. And you can do that during meditation to kind of put you in that little trance, or you can just do that when you're angry. It's great for when you're angry or frustrated because you're taking deep breaths. That's a great thing to do. And you do that during your magic practice as well to inhale the energy, the chi from the earth, as he's like to put it. You inhale, fill the earth with the light beneath your feet, and then you exhale, but the energy stays in. So a big thing that I learned was that you're not supposed to use your own energy because it depletes you. You're supposed to borrow the energy from the universe. So when I get done a practice, when I get done a practice, I'm sitting there like, yeah,
I caught that. Don't worry.
fuck. But like, when you get done a practice, I sit there feeling like shit. But then I realize, wait, I'm using my own energy. I'm not supposed to be doing that. Fun
Girl
times.
2.0 just pointed out that psychologically it takes 20 minutes or so to calm down when angered.
Oh
Uh,
god.
so basically, just one whole meditation sitting, just whenever you can, just brush it off. I feel like some of the times just taking a walk can help, but in this day and age, even that's sort of out of the question in some
Mm,
cases. But how has it been for you being coped up with COVID?
it's not that bad actually. But Chris
Not
and Nick
that
and I
different,
like to go
right?
to the woods. Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm an essential worker, so nothing really changed for me. It's not like I had to quarantine or anything like that because I work at a pet store, so we can't leave the pets to die. So I'm actually always at work.
Right.
And whenever we're stressed out or we just want to get in tune with nature, which is a great thing to do, and I will point this out because I was doom scrolling. Never doom scroll. Please. 2 days ago, I don't know if Crow's watching right now, but we were on the same wavelength here
Just
that we
got
were
here,
scrolling
actually.
through. Hi, Crow! We were just kind of scrolling and seeing all this stuff going on, and the world is just up in flames. And I was scrolling through Twitter and seeing all this hatred, and it managed to turn my mind around in 360 like, is this humanity now? Are we just full of hell and flames? Are we just full of hatred so much? And I was like, I need to get out of here. So I shut down Twitter, and I just want to hang out with my best friends. But sometimes we go to the woods, and nature's your best friend too. Nature comes over like, hey, pal, you need to relax? You need to like take a load off? Come on, I'll show you some pretty ass sights. And there you go. That's the best stress reliever for me.
Crow's yelling because you're psychic and you knew that she was doom scrolling. And so she
We
was
were
letting
talking
it.
about it earlier. What do you mean?
Yeah, like I mean, we were on about it earlier, so I don't know why it's a surprise to you. Just
I'm
gonna
psychic because I just like knew that she was
because
coming.
we're talking about all these social media things. I'm just gonna plug all this stuff for a second. Um, yeah, I spelled that wrong. That's right. Just didn't work. That's all. Uh, um, so we talked a bit about Prisma Visions, but I don't know. Did you divulge everything you wanted to divulge? We talked about last night. You put out this stupid. You put out the excerpt for the for Prisma Visions last night. The
Yeah,
whole.
yes.
Um, I had a blast reading that, but I was half asleep. I read it this
It's
morning
okay.
again,
Yeah, I
but
kind of posted it at like 3 in the morning, so
yeah, it was definitely something that like visionarily, like in my head, I'm a visualizer. I like to visualize stories that I'm being told.
same here.
Visually, it came to me very very smoothly. Like it's not
Good,
something
I'm
that I had
great.
to
That's
push
great.
for to like imagine. And it by the end of the excerpt, it was like it had fully developed into this like anime style, you know, sequence that it went from like in my head being one of your animatics, starting as one of your animatics to being this whole like anime sequence with like high definition bunny rabbit claws and stuff like this.
Thank
I
you. That's a
mean,
really great compliment, actually.
it visual like I said, visually it came to me very easy and smoothly. So I mean,
That's what I try to use in my stories and like even poetry too. I love adding detail to influence the reader or like the audience to kind of just use imagery.
yeah,
Like I want you to see the picture. I want you to feel what I'm feeling. I want you to see what I'm trying to draw here too. Because I'm probably not
imagination,
going to be able to draw it as well, so I'm going to might as well just write it.
right? And I feel like the imagination definitely took hold. Like with Lavender having, well, I don't want to go too far with this. With the excerpt, it lets you know that Lavender is a god.
Correct.
So with Lavender having these like this omnipotence about him, it went literally from looking like a childish cartoon to evolving slowly into this. The sketches that I showed off earlier, you didn't see them, but I showed off your sketches of Lavender as a god with all
Yeah,
many
right.
arms and stuff like this. It like I don't know the evolution. I like watching progress happen. I like it. That's what gets me riveted, really. To be honest, I watch Aaron stream, who rated us earlier. Thank you, Aaron, for rating us earlier. Um, the way he builds with his music. I like watching these, like, it's like watching somebody build a tower. They start at these little steps and they just got to build this door frame, and then they're building this plateau that they're going to lay the foundation on and stuff like this. That's what I'm watching you do right now. I'm watching you lay this foundation out for what you're going to have. And the way that I sort of watched it evolve in my head, I see that progress happening for you. So I want to make sure that you keep going with this. I don't want you to give up on this. I know that sometimes you say that you give up on your projects, but I want to make sure you keep going with this.
Yeah, I have no intention of stopping this one. It actually means way too much right now.
I'm glad. And I'm glad for the people that are behind you and backing you on this as well. Like, it's going to be something that's, regardless of who it's important to, it's going to be important to a few people. And just because of its story and like what you have to say there. So it's something that somebody would have gotten out like a different version of, and it wouldn't have come across the right way. So I'm really glad you're doing it.
Thank you.
A little bit of praise here and there never hurt anybody.
I'm just so awkward with compliments. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Tell me a bit more about your high magic practice. We didn't really get into the high magic too much. We got into
I'm not professional on it. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I haven't actually been able to make it to some of Damien's live streams because I'm at work or I'm just having a moment. But mainly the high magic practices that I do right now consults with the angels and such. So that's going to be like Gabriel, Raphael, Mikhail, stuff like that. The LBRP, he said that's like the bare minimum of magic is to do the LBRP, the lesser banishing ritual practice, and or pentagram. But I do like a little video segment. He has a video up that's kind of like a guided meditation, but it's not a guided meditation. It's a different practice. And that also helps with my imagery and imagination, because high magic has a lot of like imagery involved. It takes a lot of, there's like a certain word I'm looking for. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I cannot find it for some reason. But you just have to vision these kind of things. Vision the angels in front of you, the pentagrams glowing this certain color. And I'll do like the Quabalistic Cross, for example. That helps me stay grounded. That kind of helps me start the day. And in the, like, for example, the solar and lunar meditation where you breathe in and you imagine the sun or the moon, depending on the time of day, going up and down, that's going to like help you with your energy to start the day as well. You can consult the angels if you need some sort of guidance. It's kind of the same as the tarot cards, but more personal, because you can find your personal angel. Mine, for example, is Gabrielle, and which is funny because that's the messenger of God, and the messenger of God is a dove. So 2 doves, but that's one of my practices. There's more to it, but I'm like drawing a blank. I'm so sorry.
Well, for me, sometimes I consider playing music a bit of a practice. It's not like
right.
I don't. People say, "Oh, I'm practicing music." That's not what I mean. Like, I mean spiritual. I sometimes get into a loop of repeating the same chords over and over again, and sort of just lose myself in a mind thing. I know you've been playing or learning a bit of ukulele recently.
It's more often right now the kalimba, if anything.
I was gonna say there's also the kalimba. But,
yeah.
I find the kalimba is, and we're backwards here. I would be easier with the uke than I would be with the kalimba. How are you? How does that help you to sort of find a place with yourself?
Yeah, that could be what answers your question about the practice, because with the ukulele, you have to do certain chords, and it sets my anxiety off when I can't find a certain chord, and it's like, it just sounds wrong, and it just sets my anxiety off, and then it gets me really frustrated. But with the kalimba, I just do it naturally. I just kind of like, oh, what does this button do? And then I just keep doing it, and it sounds nice. It sounds like really mystical, just like kind of the aesthetic that I like. So that's what I do. I'll just start like hitting around with random buttons and such like that. Buttons, like, what would they be called?
Keys?
Keys, I guess? Are they keys?
I don't know. For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, they might be watching or listening after the fact. This is a kalimba.
There we go, yeah. They don't look like keys.
That's not right. Here we go. Get the No, that's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. Haunting.
I mean, I don't play properly.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'll just flick around like you're doing and somehow make a melody out of it, and it just comes naturally to me.
Yeah, I get too distracted with those. I just bought that so I had something to play in the car on the way to my trailer. But, basically, I have not ever managed to come up with a. I mean, a lot of things. I say my guitars are like sonic brushes. I just come up with this sonic imagery that sounds good, and I just play it. I've never managed to come up with something that sounds good that I can just play on this.
Every instrument speaks differently to people. The ukulele, I want it to speak to me, but I can't force it to speak to me. Sad truth, but
that's the same thing with me with the guitar. I try to force it to speak to me, and it only speaks a couple of sentences. Goo goo gaga is about what it says.
It speaks a foreign language. Like, bitch, put me down.
I just play it the way that I can play it to, get used to it. And if it doesn't want to speak to me any further than that, then I leave it be.
Yes.
But I think that, all of that, whether it's music or, I consider all of it art. I tell people all the time, even if you're just driving to work and you decide to shout at the person in front of you, that's still art. That's still part of your day. That's still part of what you're doing. It's still art. You want to jump into a pool, that's whatever. That's art. But when you're expanding on that kind of thing with like within art, not everybody calls your day-to-day life art, but when you're expanding on that kind of thing, I think that it helps to remember that your imagery that you've got in your head is not going to be defined by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're putting it out there, when you've got this thing, Prisma Visions, and you present that to somebody, not everybody's going to see it the way you do. Do you,
Right.
with the story that you're putting across, do you expect some kind of specific feedback?
No, I actually encourage people to have different interpretations. Like, so far, like you and my two in-person best friends are the only ones that know like the actual meaning behind it, because you were part of the progress of when I first started this, and like you're the closest person I talk to. So I just started going off like, hey, what if this mattered? Like, what if this person, like, what if it's influenced by this and this? So when we had this little guessing game yesterday, when I was first creating Cerulean, and you just kept going, is it this? No, it's this. It's this. I'm like, no, but I like that. And you came up with certain things. I love that. I love when people get it wrong. So that I encourage you to get it wrong. I don't want somebody to look at my rabbits and go, this reminds me of this, and it's spot on. And it's like, oh no, I made it too easy. I want you to guess. Like, I want to boggle your mind. I love to speak in riddles. So if you don't get it right off the bat, that's a compliment to me.
I think that's interesting, because that makes if it's something that makes your imagination work and that's what evolves your creativity, then that's what you should go with. And I think, like I said, with the character development, it's been so good so far that that's definitely what's working for you.
It encourages theory.
And I think speculation is one of the most important things to keep in a good series. Is like, have the viewer or the reader guessing afterwards to,
right?
Is it going to be this way? Is it going to be that way? Or
it's like a never-ending cliffhanger.
Yeah, if you're too open with it right away, then everybody's going to,
spark doesn't really doesn't work that much. Right.
If it's too easy to guess, then there's nothing there to grasp onto.
Like, I like to overanalyze things, as you do and a lot of other people do as well. So my inspirations that revolve around the rabbits, for example, I have to overanalyze in order to do that, because I'll try to make a good example without giving away too much. I won't even say a rabbit. I'll just say a character in general. If a character is inspired by a certain person, then you wouldn't go, oh, this person's really bubbly and energetic, but sometimes gloomy, and then you put those same things in. The one thing I like to avoid majorly, the same exact quotes into character's mouth. That's gonna be guessed right off the bat if the person knows who it is. Right. So it's like, I'm gonna try to find the little underlying details, the little nicks and the nooks and crannies, the tiny little things that people normally don't pick up on, because I like the little details and things. That's another thing that I go by. is I don't like the big picture most of the time. I like the little details that nobody picks up on, so that when I tell my friend, hey, I like how's your animation going? How's your game going? And he goes, you still remember that about me, actually. They're like, yeah, I remember that because I like the little things about people. Like, of course, I remember the time when somebody smiled this big at something they saw, something they were passionate about, some things that people would kind of brush off. But it's like, I like the way you have dimples when you smile. I like when your eyes twinkle when you talk about this certain thing. So I like to find the tiny little things about people and then put those into the rabbits because nobody's going to know. Like,
Yeah.
a person does so much in one day that I take the tiny little things and put the details in that instead.
Yeah. If you were going to take a character and turn it into a different character, I wouldn't make a duck that I was going to, I don't know, draw a duck. I wouldn't make it say, bite my shiny metal ass. Because then it would be a dead giveaway that this duck is supposed to be a specific character from a different place. It's definitely, when you're taking your inspiration, it's definitely good to be choosy. I'm thinking of a particular character that you developed that would have a line that would definitely give it away. But
there's a lot. Trust me, there's a lot.
there's quite a few of them, but I don't know why I'm doing that because I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to give away your stuff. But
it's like, oh no, I can't do the teasers.
There's those characters are definitely developing very well, and I'm very happy to be a part of and to see where that leads. And yeah, I hope you keep going with that. So
I will. Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna just talk about your poems a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really gonna. I don't have any ready to read or anything like that.
No, that's okay. Don't worry.
But my favorite one is the message in a bottle one.
Oh.
How many have you posted? Do you know how many you've done recently? How many that you've posted on?
Probably like 3 or 4. I just started again getting into poetry, and I usually write it. You know, I don't remember which podcast this was with Dad, but there was a podcast where he mentioned one of the greatest works from people comes from manic episodes and depression. And if you haven't noticed, my poems usually revolve around when I'm having a goddamn episode.
I can definitely hear some of the, like, this one specifically, which we're talking about, is the message in a bottle one, and there's definitely some hints from Duncan in there.
Right, there was a response in the gathering that he talked about. Wouldn't it be lonely? I was like, oh, I like that.
Some of your other work, I think you had a couple darker ones, but one of the most recent ones was called Incense.
Yes.
I like that one too. Where did your inspiration from that come from? Just watching the smoke drift after you burn an incense?
Literally, yeah. It was the incense burner that I had, and I really liked the way the smoke was just kind of like twirling around, and like there's a video up somewhere that I posted of it. But it's like it looks like it's dancing. It looks like it has like another partner with it, and it's like tangoing and like waltzing. I'm like, that's so cool. It's so cool that smoke is able to do that. So like I wrote a poem after it because it like really inspired me for some reason. Like that's so cool. Like they're intertwining, they're becoming one, but then they split apart too. But then they can literally just come back again if they're lit again. Like that's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's like water, like it's like the ocean. There's different streams that separate, but eventually it all sort of conjoins again eventually.
Exactly. It's like a community.
Yeah, exactly. Like there might be some separation and parting ways, but eventually it all flows back into each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that that might be a good place to wrap it up. Did you want to shout yourself out in any of where the people can find you or anything like that? I'm going to give you a shout out anyway.
No, I'm on my Instagram mainly. That's really where I post all my works. That's Lullaby Dove. But that's really it, yeah.
Lullaby Dove on Instagram. Yeah. We got Sabbatical Dove on Twitter. The X script for Prisma Visions is in the chat, and I'll be posting that in the YouTube link below. Her YouTube channel is up there. Check out the Teespring links that I posted in the chat. You can pick up all these shirt designs there. Keep your eyes and ears peeled on that YouTube because there might be some more Prisma Vision stuff coming soon. Who knows? Check out Rat and Tat too because that's an interesting little short.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's crude. Just saying PG-13.
Thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate you. and we will see y'all later. Ta for now.